It's beer o'clock on Real Ale Craft Beer. Today we have a Brains Brewery showcase to show you. It's quite a new thing to the channel, this, where we don't just review individual beers from a brewery, but we show all of their beers, all of their kind of cool range. Now, there is Barry Island IPA, which I've completely left out of this because I've done a separate video for that beer. You can check it out, have a look at the channel, Brains Barry Island IPA, launching into Morrison's on the 15th of September in 440 milliliter cans. So I've left that out because I've done a full kind of like 8 to 10 minute review on that beer. But I just wanted to show you kind of like the traditional, what Brains are really known for, their SA, their Rev James, their SA Gold, their Brains Dark. So I'm going to show you them today. So here's the first beer, a legendary Welsh ale, Brains SA. Samuel Arthur, Skull Attack, some ale. Personally, I think it's Samuel Arthur. Then we have the Rev James, 4.5% ABV. Brains Dark, which probably in the 40s and 50s was probably their best-selling beer. Dark beer in the early 19th century to mid 19th century was a big seller around the UK. That was probably their number one beer in the history books. This one's 4.1% ABV. Interestingly, with this beer, Brains Dark in the bottle, on cask it's about 3.5 to 3.6% ABV. In the bottle, 4.1. And then last but not least, probably this is the first time Brains ever ventured into kind of using American hops. So this would have been US Cascade that they brewed with SA Gold. Cascade and Styrian Gold in hops. 4.7% ABV. So without further ado, let's get these beers out into a glass and see what we get. Where shall we begin? I think we'll begin with SA. Dragon on the bottle cap, being a Cardiff brewery. Nice, look at the smoke. Smoke on the bottle opening. I haven't had SA in the bottle for, blimmin' heck, it must be years and years. I drink it on cask. If I see it, I seen it in a tinny within yesterday. I had a pint of it yesterday on cask with my dinner. One finger, slightly off-white head, good levels of carbonation, a rich looking amber coloured beer. Must put these together. Brains SA. Let's go with the Rev James. Now this is an interesting story with this beer. This used to be a Buckley's beer. There's the bottle cap. This is actually their best-selling beer. Now they don't use the Brains yeast in this beer. It's not Brains yeast. It's actually Buckley's yeast. So it'd be interesting to put these two beers side by side and taste the different yeast strains between Brains SA and the Rev James, and kind of realise why, I suppose, Rev James is their number one selling beer. Could be the different malts. It looks a little bit darker than SA. Could be the malts. Could be the hops. Probably the yeast. Right. SA Gold. Now, interesting with this beer, Bill Dobson, the head brewer of Brains, has been the head brewer of Brains ever since I had a kind of association, if you like, a friendship with this brewery. He's always been the head brewer, and I presumed this was Bill's beer. I thought this would have been his idea, but actually it was the brewer before Bill Dobson that come up with this particular beer. Standout success in the brewery, SA Gold. One finger white head, lighter coloured beer. This would have been brewed in a kind of a reaction, if you like, or the growing trend of American pale ales rolling around the world. This was Brains' hey, we can do this too. And then Brains Dark, legendary beer, this one. Really, I like it in bottle, gold, dragon bottle cap. Nice bit of smoke on the bottle opening. Beer in the glass. Look at this. Look at that. Always been a big fan of dark beer. Always been a big fan of big, rich, dark looking beer. Look at that. Isn't that fantastic? One finger tan coloured head. Jet black beer in the glass. There's no light bleeding through that glass whatsoever. A little bit of carbonation. Beautifully presented beer. Right, Brains SA. Lots of toffee, lots of biscuit. Lots of nuttiness. A little bit of sweetness. Let's dive in. Kind of a little bit like Hobgoblin, but a lighter, a lot of that kind of caramel you get in a Hobgoblin. A little bit of carbonation, a little nuttiness coming through, a little bit of sweetness coming through as well. Touch of bitterness. Interesting beer that. Interesting beer. It's nice. It's a little bit thin. If I'm perfectly honest with you, it could probably do with a little bit more mouthfeel. It's just a touch thin. I don't know, actually. Maybe I kind of reverse back on that a little bit. Not so much thin. I think personally that beer needs a little bit more. There needs to be more layers of malt flavour. There's caramel, there's sweetness, and then there's a bitterness on the back end. Probably needs like a few more layers of kind of malty flavour for me to really go, whoa, that is terrific. Let's move on to Rev James. Again, I've not had Rev James in a bottle for a number of years now. But let's go side by side with this beer. Let's work out why this is Brains' #1 selling beer now. that yeast strain we were talking about earlier, it's just a little bit more estery. There's a little bit more of a kind of like a fruity kind of yeast flavour coming through on the back end. There's a touch more of a licorice flavour coming through. It seems to have that same mouthfeel. It's rich. Carbonated is rich. It's a bit of toffee malt, it's a bit of licorice. But it's not a million miles apart from Essay. It's not worlds apart. Like, I wouldn't be able to really put my finger on why Rev James is now the #1 selling beer from Brains. Perhaps the cask version is slightly different. Of course, these are keg beers. They're kind of carbonated beers in bottles, these, whereas maybe the cask is a real big seller for Brains. Perhaps it'd be interesting to go and do this in a pub and drink these beers on cask in a pub, just to see how different they are. You know, they're pretty decent beers. Let me get that across to you. Essay Gold, 4.7% ABV. Lighter malt, a lot hoppier. That kind of grapefruit zing is coming through. Citrusy, zesty, golden ale, a hoppy golden ale at 4.7% ABV that I could drink all afternoon in a pub. Refreshing, drinkable, fairly decent beer. Nice kind of snatch of bitterness on the back end. Light, clean malts. A little bit of sweetness over there, a little bit of bitterness over here. Again, decent beer. Here we go then. Now, 2023, 2024 has been a really good year for dark beer. Pardon me. It's that carbonation. Yeah, dark beers had a stouts, porters, darks. They've had a real kind of resurgence. We've had a lot of people trying to compete with Guinness. Camden brought out a stout. We've had the Colin McGregor stout come out, the Forged, which is really good. I thought I like mine. Others didn't. Apparently there was batch issues with that beer, the Colin McGregor beer, the Forged Irish Stout. But I was lucky enough to have a decent batch of that. Others Ansbach and Hob, they have brought out their London Black, which is a terrific beer. But this has always been around. Brains Dark has always been a thing. It's always been around. Aroma. Oh, brilliant. Fantastic roasty, toasty, coffee, chocolate, caramel aroma. Really good. Let's dive in. Cheers. Fantastic. Fantastic. For me, standout beer. Out of all of these beers, Brains Dark in the bottle, just a personal preference of mine. Absolutely fantastic in the bottle. It's nutty, it's rich, There's a nice hot bitterness on the back end. There's lots of flavour. There's chocolate, there's coffee, there's caramel, sweet caramels, bitter dark chocolate, bitter coffee flavours coming through. Fantastic, creamy, rich mouthfeel. And to be honest with you, a different beer. If you've had Brains Cask Dark, then it comes in it's either 3.4, 3.5 or 3.6% ABV. In a bottle of 4.1% ABV, it's just a different drink. It's a different animal. It's more of a fierce animal, if you like. One that you look at from a distance and go, that's pretty, but I'm not going to go anywhere near it. Does that work? Did that sentence just work then? This is a beautiful example of a Brains beer. This is a beautiful example of how beers used to be brewed many years ago. And it's the reason why dark beer, black beers if you like, stouts and porters and darks had such a great following. This would have no doubt, this would have been Brains' best-selling beer back in the 30s, the 40s and the 50s. It was just a thing. Dark beer back then was just a thing. It was a massive thing. That is beautiful, nicely carbonated, terrific quality beer. I'm going to start off by rating this then. Brains Dark in the bottle for me is a shining example of quality dark miles in a bottle. It's a 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 from Real Ale Craft Beer. The other beers, the SA Gold, it's as good as many golden ales out there. For me, that gets an 8 out of 10. The two, let's call them premium ales from Brains, the SA and the Rev James, I'm a little bit unsure of. On a personal level, I think they need, like the Brains Dark in the bottle had lots of different flavour characteristics. Coffee, chocolate, caramel, great mouthfeel, sweetness, bitterness. There was so much going on. These two beers here from Brains, although Rev James being ironically the best seller, it's okay. It's okay as a bottled bitter. Same as the SA. The Rev James, actually going back to it, the Rev James being a better beer. The Rev James being a better beer. I'm going to go back to what I was saying initially about the Brains SA. It is going back now, after drinking the dark, after drinking the Rev James, it's a little bit thin. Brains SA is a little bit thin for me. It needs a little bit more malt character. It needs a little bit more body. So Brains SA, 6 out of 10. Kind of average beer. Rev James, 7 out of 10. Slightly above average. So that's a look at the range of Brains' beers then, available to buy. Of course, Barry Island IPA is also a firm favourite with beer lovers. There's a lot of promise. For a company that's been around since 1882, there's still a lot of promise. I think Bill and the team can probably maybe look at SA again. Maybe strip it down to the bare bones as a beer. What it represents to the people of Cardiff and the surrounding area, and maybe look at it again. Maybe look at how they can add a bit more body, or maybe how they can add a little bit more kind of layers of malt in there to improve not just the body of the beer but the flavours of the beer. Get some nuttiness in there, get some husk of brown bread in there, get that kind of great British bitter kind of taste back in the beer. For me, it's a bit like sweet caramel beer. It's a 6 out of 10, whereas it should be. I should be raving about SA like I was raving about dark, and that's the point of it. And there's no point in me standing here dishonest, going, oh yeah, you know, Brains, it's all great, everything's perfect. That's not the feedback that Brains want from me. It's not the feedback that you, as people who buy beer and watch the channel, who trust me, want me to do either. So it's although it's critical feedback, I think it should be taken on a positive note, and it should be kind of like rolled out and you know, to try to produce a better SA. That's what I think Brains need. Thanks for watching. Please put your comments in the comments box, subscribe to our daily beer and food reviews, give us a big fat thumbs up. Boom, cheers.